everybody. Happy Wednesday and welcome to another installment of Mamas in Miami. I'm Christy Diaz and together we're going to be navigating parenthood with unwavering solidarity of one another and fierce love. We just had technical difficulties a little while ago with Andrea Mole, who's going to be joining us and dropping knowledge on all things RIVF. Hopefully, we are going to have another attempt at connecting with her right now. There appears to be some sort of hurricane outside, and I think as a result, we are having technical difficulties. Did anybody hear the National Hurricane Center report anything about a storm? Because if that is the case, I have not gotten gas in my car, I haven't started my black beans, and I have not purchased enough toilet paper to go around. So we're going to try now. I know that Key Biscayne's without power. Not sure if wherever Andrea is, there's no power. Good morning, everyone. We're going to just try again, okay? So bear with us. Here we go.
Okay, there we go.
Right. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We don't know what's going on outside with this like last minute hurricane, but just a couple seconds ago, the sky was completely black and I had to turn every light in my room on so you could see me. Yes, storm alert. Somebody just reported. Well, you know what, Andrea, I don't have my black beans ready. I did not buy enough paper. I did not fill up my gas or
It's
car.
okay.
We're in trouble if there's a storm coming.
We had that weather here yesterday, but it's good today.
Well, apparently it may turn into a depression once it crosses the state. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Anyway, I apologize for the technical difficulties,
No.
but thank you so much for on today and dropping your knowledge. I am dying to know, what is RIVF? And before I ask what RIVF is, because you kind of threw that curveball this morning, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Um, my name is Andrea Mole, as you said before. My wife and I did Reciprocal IVF, which is what RIVF stands for. Do you want like a little backstory of us or? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've been together for a very long time. I'm 32 and we were 17 when we started dating. So long, long time. We met in elementary school when we were 11. We became really, really close friends. Nothing going on, just really good friends at the time. She moved to Tampa. We were apart for a little while. I searched for her everywhere, found her on MySpace. So we started talking. I'm sure you remember MySpace. We started talking on there and, just really great friends. And then, like, around 17, we started dating. But from the very, very beginning, we knew we wanted kids and we knew we wanted to get married. We just kind of waited to excel in our careers first. I'm a nurse practitioner and she's a doctor. So, we did all of that. We went to school in Puerto Rico, moved back to Florida. We got married in a destination wedding in 2019. Our family was there. It was lovely. And then we got our sperm donor during COVID. And we chose to start like that process. And we always knew we wanted to do reciprocal IVF.
So please enlighten us for all of us that don't know what reciprocal IVF is.
What it is, it's basically in vitro fertilization, but it's reciprocal because we get to carry each other's eggs, each other's embryos. So it's a way for like same-sex couples to just have a little more, union in the process. So at first we knew we wanted to do that and we were like, how cool would it be if we could? And then we realized it was actually a thing. And we found a clinic that does that. I think all fertility clinics do now. And so that's what we did. I carried my wife's embryo to start.
So during COVID in 2020, you decide right off the bat that you are ready to start your family. Did you go to the fertility clinic before you started looking for a sperm donor, or does that happen once you have your initial visit? How did you even get paired with your clinic?
So it honestly, everyone has a different order. There's no right and wrong. There's some people who find their sperm donors first and then go to their fertility clinics or go to their fertility clinics and get their sperm donor. It really depends. I just did a ton of research, thanks to social media. I found other couples that had done it. I looked for clinics in Tampa. I found Shady Grove Fertility, which I think they have some locations in Miami. They had pretty good reviews. I found other same-sex couples that had successful stories with them, and so I decided to go along with that clinic. But before I chose to even schedule a consultation, I did some research on sperm banks. And I came across two different ones. There's really not many. There's like three top sperm banks that are used within the US and internationally. We used California Cryobank. And it's kind of like a catalog where you go on, you create an account, and you start looking for different sperm donors. So we chose to get that first and have that, and then schedule our consultation with the fertility clinic to move forward.
And when you chose your sperm bank, it was it just process of elimination because you mentioned that there weren't so many of them to choose from, or was there a deciding factor that led you to that bank?
I actually found like a couple who she shares her story online. She did reciprocal IVF and she shared that sperm bank. And it had wonderful reviews, and what it has that's great is that it has like photos from when the donor was small, and then grown-up photos, and then it has a full genetic panel that they run on the donors before they can even submit a sample. So it was a good bank, and we chose to go with that one. We looked at two different ones, but there's not many options for, I feel like, good sperm donors. So it was tough.
I wouldn't have thought that it was
Yeah.
such a hard. When you choose your sperm donor, is there any identifying factors that you're looking for, characteristics in terms of features, or was it really you wanted to be a mom and it didn't matter to you?
So it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but like when you start the process, you're really excited when you start looking for a sperm donor. And because you know you're going to start your family, and then you start looking on the website, and it's like there's an elephant in the room. You realize, all right, I have to use someone that I don't want to in order to start my family, right? I only wish that my wife and I could create this baby together without using sperm, but we need it. So the only thing that we were really looking at was that it kind of looked like us. We wanted him to have similar features, so like the same skin tone, eye color, same hair color, just so that it resembled us a little more. And then in reality, just the family history, genetic testing to make sure that they had complete genetic testing, and that was it. And then, we were really caught up on someone that had photos when they were little and then older, because when you look at baby photos and then you look at adult photos, you're like, oh my God, they look totally different. So
Ah,
at first we were set like on that. We were like, it needs to have an adult photo. But again, there's not that many options. So you're like, you start getting so picky. Oh, they look like this, they look like that. And the reality is when you meet someone, you don't worry about those things. If you get pregnant accidentally, you're not worrying about their family history, what they look like, you kind of just happens.
right.
So we got less caught up on that, and I honestly was at the point where I was like, let's just pick someone. And we just did that. We made sure that it had the same features as us, good genetic background, and at the end, I didn't want to know what they look like as an adult. So we kind of chose someone just based off of a baby photo, and we're hoping that it's, a really good looking guy.
Sure.
But yeah, so that was one thing I noticed as I started the process. I didn't want to
Oh,
know, because it's something that I would think about. So I'd rather just kind of
wing
go
it.
with it. And yeah,
Yeah.
we chose like that.
And when you're choosing a sperm donor, are you already thinking in mind that you want to give your child siblings? And if that's the case, do you want it to be from the same donor, or are you okay with multiple donations? How did you even process that?
So that's a big one, because we want them to have that genetic, link. We'd like them to be siblings no matter what they're going to be, but we want them to have that genetic connection. So we wanted to make sure that we got enough of the same sperm donor to be able to fertilize both of our eggs. So the way that works is, there's some people that choose to do IUI, which is just artificial insemination, or in vitro fertilization, which is what we chose. For that, when you do IUI, one vial is just for one try. So you need a lot of vials. IUI is less likely to stick, and so there's people who have to get up to 8 to 10 vials. But we knew we wanted to do IVF. And so for every round of egg retrieval, which I'm sure we'll talk about how that works, you only need one vial of the sperm donor. So we knew that we would each do one egg retrieval. Hopefully it was successful. So we got 2 vials there, and then just in case, we got 2 more. And that's kind of how we did it.
4 samples from the same donor.
From the same donors, so that we would have enough for our process.
If you don't mind our asking,
Yeah.
just to know the finances involved, how much would 1 vial cost a family looking to start a family?
$1,000, like that's the range, but I know it's gone up. We purchased it 4 years ago already, so I think it's gone up. I think it might be a 1,200, 1,400, but per vial. So if you have people who are doing IUI, it adds up, you know?
Sure. And does the donor have a limit to how many donations he's allowed to give?
Yes, they do. I'm not positive how many, but there's a limit. And I think there's a limit on how many families can use that donor as well. But in the US, you're not including how many families can in Europe and here and there, you know?
Oh, interesting.
It adds up.
Is there a world where you can say, I do not want my future child to have siblings outside of the siblings I give them? So, is there like a sample that a donation where you could say, I don't want the donor to give to anybody else?
I'm not, truthfully, I'm not aware. From what I know, that doesn't exist. You go and this donor has a certain amount of vials, and anyone is free to go and purchase them. I think there's a cap, like in the US, for example, only a certain amount of families can purchase from one donor. But no, I don't think you can do that. I don't know if you'd have to purchase all of their vials or what, but who can afford that? These donors, they donate a lot.
Sure.
Um, so no, so you always run that risk.
Is that a full $1,000 charge on your credit card, or is there payment plans that can be placed for it? How does that work?
It's the one-time payment.
So it could get pricey.
Oh yeah, sperm's expensive.
How do you go through the process of receiving your sample?
Um, so it depends if you're doing the insemination at home or in a clinic. We did it in the fertility clinic. So when it comes time to do the egg retrieval, we ship it to the clinic like 3, 4 days before, nothing crazy. And then they store it there. And it costs, I want to say like 120 or less than 200 to ship, but you have to pay for it to get to your clinic.
And do you receive all your vials at once or no?
No. So I only shipped 2. My wife and I almost did our egg retrieval the same day. We were a day apart, so we could have used 1 vial, but I didn't want to risk it. And thankfully I didn't. We were a day apart. So we transferred 2 vials. And so we still have 2 at the clinic.
At the clinic in California
Yeah.
or the clinic in
The California clinic of fertility.
and is there were there any legal implications that you had to deal with the donation of the sperm
No.
or no? It's a fairly
They have a very organized process for all of this. I mean, you sign a ton of paperwork when you purchase it, but it's all there. And that's it. And once you purchase it and you sign all the forms, like that sperm is yours and you can do whatever you choose with it, you know?
Would you be open to your child the day that he turns 18 for him to say, I'd like to meet the person that donated? Are you have you even considered that? I know the baby's so
Yeah.
little still.
No. You talk about all these things before you have a baby. No matter what, you don't want to again. And like, I think about it and it sucks, but you always talk about that. So at first we were very adamant about doing a closed like ID donor. So you can get one that's open or closed, or someone who, for example, right now you can't contact, but when our child is 18, he can reach out to the clinic and get all the information. At first I was set on it being anonymous, nothing. But then I realized, one, we're very limited, so there were barely any anonymous donors, and also, who am I to take that right away from my son? So even though we'd hope that in the future there's no need for him to reach out because this is not a father, this is simply a sperm donor. If that curiosity ever were to come to surface, he's open and I'd be supportive about it, and my wife as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you spoke about just a medical screening when you received your sperm donation, but you don't really think about what happens when sperm and egg unite if there's a genetic mismatch between you and the donor itself. And here you're telling me that it's a reciprocal where both of you are extracting
Hmm.
your eggs. So it's double the probability of there being a genetic
Yeah.
mismatch.
Hmm.
Is there a risk involved? Well, obviously there's a risk involved. I guess the question is, do you get a discount in, I'm sorry, the sperm does not match both of us. I have to get somebody else. Is that even something, or is it, I'm sorry, you bought it, you lost it?
No, they work with you. So I think you're able to switch if there ends up being some sort of genetic abnormality that you can't use the sperm donor. But there's fees. There's a bunch of fees, you know. You have to pay, you don't, it's not like you get 100% of your money back and you choose a sperm donor. You choose a new sperm donor. You have to pay a certain fee and then you're able to change it.
To switch
But
them
that's
out.
a risk you take when you pick it first, you know? So that's why some couples wait to go to a fertility clinic, start the process, and then choose the sperm donor. You
Is
know,
there others involved that might not work out as well, other than something like that, than a genetic abnormality between sperm and egg?
so
Or is
there's like a virus that they always check to see if you're positive for, CMV virus. And so they tell you if the donors are positive or negative, and then you don't find out if you're positive or negative till you do blood work with the fertility clinic. So that's something else that you'd have to take into consideration if you're both positive. And that would work the same way with the clinic. They'll work with you to choose a new one, but you still have to pay.
that's good to know that they'll work with you, considering that there's so few out there, and I had no idea that that was the case.
There's it's not that there's a few, there's a lot, but when you narrow it down to someone that has your skin color, there's not much. There's really not.
That's,
Maybe it's because you're so picky in the moment, or you're so, you know, that, but there's really not as much as I thought there would be.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have your sperm donor chosen, you purchased 4 vials,
Hmm.
and you're saying that you did reciprocal IVF where you and your wife both went to extract eggs.
Yes.
You mentioned that you carried your son.
Hmm.
So so I'm assuming it's Lisette, your wife Lisette's egg.
Besides eggs.
Where
Hmm.
is your egg?
They're frozen at Shady Grove Fertility right now. Poor babies.
Okay. Okay, so you both extract eggs one day apart.
Hmm.
Yours get frozen.
Hmm.
Well, how many eggs were you able to extract?
So we both started, it's cycle based. So we both started the process together. I had my extraction on the 8th of December and she did on the 9th of December. So I had about, it was over 30 eggs extracted and she had like 20 something eggs. We had a lot of eggs extracted. Out of that amount, only 20 or something fertilized the next day. And then after a few days after that, only a certain amount kept growing. So at the end, I remember I went from like 30 something, because I don't remember now the number. I went from like 30 something to 12 and then 5. And then all of a sudden, the last day, because they monitor them for 5 days, all of a sudden, the last day, 6 decided to wake up and I had 12 embryos. I'm sorry. And my wife had, I believe, like 14 embryos, 13, 14. So together we had quite a bit.
Yeah. So are all those frozen, if
All
you
those
don't mind my asking?
are frozen. Yeah.
Wow, and your wife's extra eggs are also frozen.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We didn't expect, we were truly lucky. We didn't expect to have that many embryos make it, you know?
So when you say embryos, this is fertilized from that 1 vial already?
Yeah. So for example, they extracted my eggs. They mixed those eggs with the 1 vial of sperm, like in a petri dish or however it is they do it, and then they fertilize, and those eggs turn into embryos, and so that's what you're left with at the end. So that was 1 vial, and then my wife's eggs were fertilized with the other vial, and then we got those embryos.
So you have
So it was one
two,
vial per. I'm sorry.
2 used vials have already
Two
been
used.
have already been used.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah.
And so you you drove your wife one day to get her eggs retrieved, and then she stay, and she's
Yep.
recovering.
Yep. That's what we did.
Oh my goodness. And then when do you implant?
So then, fairly quick after that, you decide if you want to do PGTA testing, which is genetic testing on your embryos or not. If you don't, you can do a fresh transfer, which is just a few days after the extraction, but we chose to do the genetic testing. So then you have to wait a whole other cycle. So that was in December, and in February, I was supposed to transfer the genetically tested embryo. But as you do that process, there's a bunch of hiccups down the line. So literally the week I was getting ready to transfer, they found that I had like a polyp. So they had to remove that. So then that set everything back, and we did our transfer in May. But once you extract the eggs and you get your embryos, it's fairly quick. It's determined by whether you're going to genetically test it and if your uterus is ready. It's all cycle based. So everything's like a month apart, pretty much.
So you're going every 28 days. You never know what's really going to pop up because you've got all these hiccups that come along the way.
Yes, I thought I was ready. We were ready to transfer February 23rd, and then like 3 days before, they were like, "Oh no, we got to remove this." So it was like a setback, but it was meant to be. And then April 24th, I'm sorry, May 24th, we transferred Oliver. Yeah.
Amazing. And did you know Oliver, what, you know his gender?
No, we didn't. We chose not to know. You can if you want. When you do the genetic testing, they give you a form with all the embryos. They're graded by how strong they are, and then on the side it tells you like the sex. But we chose not to know. We wanted like the surprise.
Of course.
Hmm.
Was there ever an option given to you to carry two at once?
No, they don't really advise that anymore. Because no matter what, twin pregnancies are high risk,
Sure.
so they just advise against it.
So that it's just one at a time and hope it implants.
Yeah, I'm sure there's always, it's a base by base case. Like I'm sure sometimes, depending on your age and stuff, if you're a little older, they will implant too. But we honestly didn't even consider it in the beginning. We knew it'd be one at a time, and we were ready for that. Um, and so yeah.
Andrea, I have a question. I don't know if you heard our conversation with Aniba this week, but he mentioned that when he went through his in vitro process down in Barranquilla, Colombia, they would not implant dual genetic embryos. So, in other words, his
Mhm.
husband's fertilized egg and his fertilized egg. Is it the same in the United States?
So I saw that live and I found that interesting because I didn't know that either. We actually at first didn't even want to know which embryo was implanted. We wanted it to be a surprise. But it, like he said, the legality of it. So at the end, there's so much paperwork. I just don't think they know what to do in those cases. So that's why it's not advised. But that would be beautiful because then you wouldn't know. If it works, you have one of each, wonderful. And if it doesn't, you don't know, which at the end doesn't matter.
Carry your children no matter what.
Yeah, I only did my egg extraction because my wife kept telling me, like, no, I want a little you, but I would have totally just done her eggs. To me, there was no need for that genetic connection. And now that I have Ollie, I can tell you it really doesn't matter.
Well, there you go. And just do that 30 minutes fly. We are at our
Oh,
30.
wow.
Telling Andrea when we were prepping for this call, you have no idea how quickly 30 minutes fly.
Yeah, it does go really quick.
It really does. So I hope you'll be back and tell us about your actual, now we're talking about the in vitro journey and how you brought Oliver into this
Yeah.
world. We'll be back to discuss that on Friday, everybody.
Okay.
So for now, please stay dry with whatever it is that's going on. Keep your coffee strong and your sanity in check, everyone. Have a great week.
All right. Bye. Bye. Thank you.